this all the time, but our small businesses, our restaurants, our larger businesses, our industry here in Newport it's really the lifeblood of our city, and we're just really fortunate that we have so many great partners that we get to work with. It's getting warmer out. We're going to get our outdoor dining and parking set up on the streets here soon. Newport's going to come alive, and like I said, we're just so lucky to have what we have here in Newport. It's funny, I'm actually bookending my day here with Chamber of Commerce events. I was in Boston this morning at the Fairmont Coffee to hear House Speaker Mariano address a group. I was there as part of my role on the NETA advisory board as their vice chair, but it was a really great speech, so I'm thankful that you have so many great speakers here tonight. I know you're going to have great questions for them. I know none of our representatives and senators are going to speak out like they did last year and not take questions, right? So you guys are going to actually participate in the Q&A, which is great. But again, we've got a lot of great things going on here in Newburyport. Just real quick, like I said, we're getting ready for our busy season. We have wonderful projects that we're finishing up this summer. We've really taken investments in our streets and sidewalks and our parks here in Newburyport. What else we have going on? We've really been focusing on housing. Again, I think any municipality that you talk to right now is dealing with the realities of the housing crisis. In Newburyport, we're really trying to be really strategic about where we're trying to put housing in Newburyport, again, for a city that's so already built out. We've had some real big wins this year. We have a Brown School, a former elementary school that's been out of commission since 2021 that we just moved forward with the City Council last Monday. They approved the zoning and disposition, but we're partnering with Zeta Insight out of Boston, and we're putting 29 deeply affordable housing units there, so that project is moving its way through the process. We took an old Kmart building that's been, again, empty and vacant for 7 years. We're partnering with the owners of that property at Port Plaza, and we're moving forward with a friendly 40B project that will bring 212, there'll be some affordability with that as well, but 212 rental units. We've lost over 200 rental units in Newport since 2010, so we're really trying to build that stock back up. Again, for me, it's about giving people options. I think we have so many people right now who are struggling with affordability, struggling with the rising taxes in most of these regions because our homes keep worth more and more, right? Which is a good thing, right? That an investment, my house has doubled in value in the 9 years that I've lived here, which is crazy. I haven't done one thing to it, but it's still worth more. So again, trying to find those ways to give people in Newburyport different options as they age, so they can age in place. So those are some of the big things we're working on. Lastly, I'm just going to leave you with this before I run out this door and try to get to the high school before 7 o'clock. But we have a debt exclusion vote coming up here in Newburyport on May 13th. We are trying to build a new recreation and youth services center. It's going to be built right across from our middle school on Low Street, 59 Low Street. This is a project that's been in the works for about 5 years. But for me, when I was running for mayor back in 2021, our youth services department was currently housed in that Brown School, and the heating system broke there, right? So they became homeless. They've been homeless since then. Now, luckily, that department has continued to thrive, but oh my goodness, what could they do with a brand new building? Since then, we have merged our recreation department with them, so now we have a recreation and youth services department. So the building that we're looking to build on Low Street would be for all ages. Again, coming out of COVID and thinking about everyone's mental and physical well-being, and then hearing the success stories of recreation centers all over the state, this would really be a point of pride for our city. And so we're excited to go through this debt exclusion vote. Again, it's coming up May 13th. For those of you based here on Newburyport, we would love your help. So if you're interested in helping, please reach out. I don't know if you can reach out to me, but please reach out. We have the committee has informed, and yes, for the rec, you can find them on our website as well. Again, I can provide any information to put in the right place, but we're excited to get the word out. I think this is going to be a great addition to Newburyport. Again, help bring more people here to enjoy our beautiful city and enjoy our businesses that are here as well. So enjoy the night, enjoy the speakers, and just great to see everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We're a little out of order. I apologize. So I'm going to start this with a good evening and welcome. My name is Dave Allard. I'm the president of the Greater Newburyport Chamber of Commerce and Industry. You all. You all know that as your members. On behalf of the Chamber team, our board of directors, it's my absolute pleasure to welcome with Steeple Hall at Mission Road Grill. Tonight is about connection between business and government, between community leaders, policymakers, between all of us. This event and the work of the Chamber year-round wouldn't be possible without the support of our incredible sponsors. We are especially grateful tonight for our presenting sponsor, someone that sponsors us heavily throughout the year on all sorts of initiatives, our good friends at Institution for Savings. Thank you for your steadfast partnership and continued generosity throughout the year. With that being said, at this time, I'd like to invite my good friend and IFS lender, David, up to the podium to say a few words.
Hi everyone, good evening. My name is Dave Bacus, and I'm a residential lender here at the Institution for Savings Newburyport. We're honored tonight to be the presenting sponsor of tonight's event. Thank you to the Newburyport Chamber for hosting this event, and thank you all for taking the time to be here today. The bank's vision is simple: to improve the lives of every person, business, and organization in our communities. And we strongly believe that one of the best ways to build stronger communities is by supporting events like this. Thank you again for coming tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you again to the entire team at IFS. Now, it is my honor, I'm not being to see this here, it's exciting. It is my honor to introduce our guest MC for the evening. She is a legendary voice.
Oh, God.
A legend, an absolute legend. An award-winning anchor, a longtime investigative reporter for WCBB TV. Join me in welcoming the one, the only, Susan Wood.
Thank you and good night. Hey, I mean, my mother. I'm thrilled to be here. I mean, I am. I grew up in Navy. I don't know Newburyport. Are you kidding me? I live in Florida now. People say to me, where are you from? And I say, Boston. And they say, is that near Newburyport? And I say, yes, it's a quick drive. I love Newburyport, and I love being here tonight. And I want to thank you, Nate, and Tom Rosa. Where's Tom in the back for inviting me? Love Tom. And the bank, you guys, the bank is right here. Okay, so if you need a loan, that's where they are. They're right here in front of the room. Thank you for that. This place is gorgeous, huh? Really? You guys did a great job. Nick, is Nick still back there? Hi. You do your and this is just beautiful. You do a lot of things. You do weddings and all kinds of events, I'm told. I should know something about weddings. Had a few. My real claim to fame is my husband, who grew up on the North Shore, Rich Reynolds, the Richie and the Renegades is sitting there. So I feel like, I grew up in River, I'm kind of now a North Shore girl. I lived in Milton for a little bit. But what I really, one of the big reasons that I wanted to come tonight when Tom invited me was not only because I have the most respect for local businesses, yes, and I'll get to that in a minute, but legislators, people who are actually making decisions to affect all of us, and now more than ever, man, they need you. We need you at the grassroots level, and your constituents need you. And the fact that you came out tonight is huge. And we are going to hear from you. And the chamber, anybody who ever watched me on television, and I'm sure that most of you, as I look around, weren't alive, but, so here's the thing, you've been retired, as I have been now for some 10 years, and people are not used to seeing. What?
I was.
You were? Oh, wait, there's one. So maybe a head count is a good idea. All right, so that's good. It's not going to take long, believe me. But so I retired 10 years ago, which is really amazing to me. And now people don't see me, on TV all the time. So when they do see me, like today in Newburyport, a little bit as we were walking around at the airport, especially when we fly. people will come up to me and they'll just go, because they think they know me, but they're not really sure. And not too long ago, one woman goes, right, and she went, what's your name? I'm not kidding. And I said, Susan Morgan. And she went, no, you're the other one. This happens to me all the time. But the best one, and Rich was right there with me, it was just a couple of months ago, we were at Logan, and a woman came up to me, and she went, oh my goodness, you're, and I went, Susan Warnick, and she said, oh my. See, I'll tell you what happened. Suzanne Salmage died. People confuse us. I'm not saying that I'm not complimented by that, but I have had people who said to me, I thought you time master. So I'm happy. I mean, I'll take whatever I can get. But I'm thrilled to be here because I'm all about community, and I'm actually all about chambers of commerce. Anybody who did watch me on television knows that I used to say at every opportunity, you know, the Better Business Bureau, okay, you know, and Good Housekeeping, Silver Crew, okay. I'd say no, you've got to go back to your local chamber of commerce because that's where it's happening. That's where you're getting the best representation. That's where you're making the biggest connections. That's where people have your back. That's where everybody's coming together. And even when the big box stores came into, you know, into the malls, and you know, I remember when all of a sudden there was Home Depot and Lowe's and Best Buy and all the big box stores, and people were saying, well, this is so great, such great prices. And I would say, you know what, you want to save $4? No. You got to go back downtown to the local store where they put the name on the door and they're proud of it. You have a problem, and you can go back there and they want to help you. You don't talk to 10 million people who really don't care that much about it. Not that I'm not saying anything bad about Home Depot. Are they members? Anybody here from Home Depot? Well, I was just going to really plug them. No, but you all know what I'm saying. That's why you're all here tonight. That's why we're all here tonight. We're very excited, you know, to hear from our legislators. I did feel, though, that I needed to also say one other thing. We lost a great one this week. Phil Johnston. I know so many of you knew Phil. He was so many things. I mean, I first knew he was the Secretary of Health and Human Services in the Dukakis administration years and years ago, and he stood for everything that we all believe in. I'm not talking politics. I'm talking about human services. I'm talking about caring about the next person and trying to help everyone. And so I felt like I did just want to take a moment to mention Phil. The services for him done very unexpectedly a couple of days ago, and their services at UMass Boston on Saturday. But Phil was actually planning to come tonight, and so for all of us who knew him, thank you, Phil. Thank you for everything that you've done. You, as I mentioned, have a great program. We're going to hear from terrific legislators who are going to make a 30-minute presentation apiece. 60 minutes. 60, all right. So you conceded your time to your 5 So we've asked them each to do about 5 minutes, and afterwards there'll be plenty of time for questions and answers so that we can all talk about what's important to us. But we will get your perspective on what you'd like us to know tonight. I'm thrilled to be able to introduce our first speaker. You, of course, all know him, Bruce Todd.
So I just want to say that, Susan, just welcome back. It's great to see you. And I am one of the people that did watch you on TV. So when I was very young, I used to watch Rex Trailer. Remember that? And when Rex Trailer was over, I turned it on, and there was Susan Warnick. And you had such an influence on me. 30 years later, I'm in the Massachusetts State Senate. So thank you for that. Yeah. But I want to tell you one more story. So I got a parking space. Very tough crowd. That's Representative Shan.
Bruce, you take as much time as you need.
That's why I've always liked you. So I actually found a parking space on Green Street. It was like I won the lottery ticket, right? So coming up. Right? So I'm like, oh my God. And the first thought was to my mind is like, Thelma and Louise. Do I want to get in that back seat? Right? So, but they're dear friends, and I said, I'm going to take a chance, so I'm going to get in. So we're driving around looking for another parking spot, and we stopped in front of Mission Oak, and this is the part where you come in. So we pull up, and there was this very excited woman from Newburyport who was standing, and she said, hey, come over. So Representative Ramos is a very cautious driver, pulls over this really nice SUV. It has the separate seats in the back, not the bench seat, right? And so this woman says, hey, where are you guys going? And we said, we're going to the Chamber of Commerce. She said, do you know that Stevie Nicks just went into Mission Oak? Standard in journalism. And there are those of us that still very much appreciate journalism in our society and the fact that it provides us with facts and information. And gives us the opportunity to think and understand, and that is so important, and you set the standard. So thank you so much for that. I want to wish everyone a great night. Tip your waiters. Make sure that So you're not going to get off that easy. So at any rate, it is great to be here with all of you. It's great to be here with the Greater Newburyport Chamber of Commerce, and it's always great to be at anything that's organized by Nate the Great Allen, who does a great job along with Tom and the rest of the crew. And somebody earlier, it might have been you, Nate, that was saying that. Great fist pump, you guys. So somebody earlier was saying that it's really important that we have an interface between the government and our business community, and this is where that happens. It happens when business owners get together, employers, who are struggling with all the different challenges that employers face, and get to see us as legislators face to face and talk about the very real things that you're having to deal with each and every day. And it's a great opportunity, and it happens because of this Chamber of Commerce and others like it all across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So, Nate the Great, thank you very much for getting us together. So we come to talk to you at a very challenging time, and that's an understatement for the state and federal government. But we want to talk to you tonight a little bit about what's happening in state government and give you a little bit of insight into where we're going. And we definitely want to hear from you about your concerns about where we're all collectively going. So right now, on Beacon Hill, we're in the midst of one of the most important and strenuous exercises in state government, and that is developing a budget for the coming fiscal year, which begins on July 1st. And we are developing that budget against a backdrop that has a number of important factors. Number one, tax revenue in Massachusetts, other than the surtax on incomes above $1 million, is flattening. And so if you look at it and you don't take into account the surtax, we're going to have about 2.5% increase. If you add in the millionaire's tax numbers, that goes to about 7.4%. So point number one is regular revenue is starting to plateau. Point number two is that the surtax continues to outperform the predictions that we've had for it. And factor number three is all of that taken together means that in the coming fiscal year, the budget that we're going to have to produce is only going to have growth for just about everything in state government from $900 million to $1.3 billion. Now that may sound like a big number until you realize that it has to cover everything, including a Medicaid caseload that is increasing. And by the way, Medicaid is roughly 36% of the state budget, the entire state budget. So when those of us in the legislature hear things coming from Washington about the fact that we need to cut Medicaid, that sends a chill down our spine, because even a small reduction in Medicaid reimbursement to our state means everything else in state government gets affected. And so we're considering that very seriously. We are trying our best, by the way, not to overreact. We're trying to deal with environment in a reasoned, stable way, knowing that at any moment when the dust finally settles and the music stops, we may have to adjust significantly. But we're also trying to not budget based on that uncertainty. So we're putting together right now fairly routine budgets, realizing that revenue is plateaued and starting to level off, and also realizing, by the way, that we don't have the kind of federal infusions that we were getting during the COVID era, right? So during COVID and in the period shortly thereafter, we had very large infusions of cash. Those are not coming back. They're gone. And the residual amounts from those infusions are almost entirely depleted. So we're in a situation where we have very limited revenue to address a wide number of priorities. And as we put together the budget, we're trying to understand how we can best allocate those resources. And I will tell you that the number one priority, bar none, that almost every legislator, if not every legislator, is talking about in terms of spending, is how do we come to the rescue of suburban K-12 school districts? Because those are the school districts that are experiencing declining enrollment and increased costs. And bear in mind that the foundation budget formula reimburses communities based upon their enrollment. So we've got what I consider to be a really perilous situation that we are trying to work together to address. And so in the interim, there are a couple of tools that we can use for that. And if someone wants to ask a question and risk a very long, boring answer, I'll be happy to provide it. But we are trying to use those tools in the interim to come to the rescue of those school districts. But in the long term, the only way that we are going to really move the needle is by adjusting the foundation budget formula. And we can talk a little bit more about that. Hello, Channel 5. The 11 o'clock news, you want to do a stand up in front? Okay. All right. So, but we're trying to develop a strategy to, in the near term, help, and in the long term, reform the system. And that is going to be the number one priority that I hear from legislators, wherever they are, whatever their party, whatever their geography. And we are hard at work on that. The second thing that we're really trying to do is make sure that Massachusetts remains and gets even more competitive. Because one of the great difficulties that we have is that we're a very expensive place to live. And so if you look at the last number of years, you literally see tens of thousands of people leaving the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And oftentimes we used to hear the conventional wisdom that those are retirees that are going south because they want to be in a warmer climate. Until you realize that the number two place they're going to is the state of New Hampshire, not exactly known for its balmy weather. And the other thing that you see when you peel the onion just a little bit is that a large percentage of the people that are leaving are between 25 and 45 years old. They are not all retirees that are leaving the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So in order to get at that, we are trying to focus on a number of things that affect you as employers as well. Number one, we all know, we've been reading about the fact that we have to do better with the cost of energy. Again, if someone wants to ask questions, I can speak a little bit more about that after my colleagues have had an opportunity. Number two, we know that we have to address the crisis in housing, where we are behind, in a conservative estimate, by about 200,000 units, which is making it very costly to live in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Number three, we know that we have to deal with the cost of health care. Because we have this sort of paradoxical situation where we have the best health care in the country, and we have a very high percentage of coverage because of the laws that have been passed in Massachusetts, which led the nation in trying to make sure that everybody had coverage. But it's still very costly, and sometimes it presents an illusion of access when access may not be there. And so we've got to work on a number of issues, and one of the leading issues that we have to deal with is the fact that we need more primary care physicians. And the reason we need them is because they are the quarterbacks of our health care. They're the ones that are doing the initial diagnosis, making the referral, managing the multiple specialists that are treating us, and yet if we don't have enough of them, good access isn't present, and I would argue that good care isn't present. And so we're trying to work on that as well. And then the last last thing that I'm going to say before I give up the microphone, which is very, very hard for me to do, and I'm going to say this in part because Nancy Gardella is here from the North of Boston Convention and Visitors Bureau, and she is like the eighth wonder of the world. In the ancient world, everyone tried to invent a perpetual motion machine that would just keep running and creating energy, and that is Nancy Gardella. So, and I'm sure that'll be in a quote in the next CPD for sure. But we also are trying to take stock of the fact that we have a lot of traditional industries in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, a lot of them leading industries. But we also need to remember that the cultural economy is a significant contributor, not only to our economic success, but also to our quality of life. And we're working hard to incorporate that strategy and that planning to make sure that we maximize one of the great natural resources of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which are really creative and innovative artists and folks that are in the performing arts, and all of those folks that need to take their rightful place with our scientists and with our captains of industry, and with all of those folks so that we get a complete picture of a holistic economy that works for everybody. And I would stand at this microphone and all doom and gloom, right? We know that the AIM Business Confidence Index is dropping very rapidly. We know that there's an incredible amount of concern and anxiety about what's happening with the stock market. We know that there's a lot of concern about the uncertainty that's coming from Washington. And I do want to recognize Tom from the Congressman's office and thank him for being a good partner with all of us. Because, you might read a lot about the partisan divide, and you might hear about it in the newspapers, and you might see it on TV. But I'm going to tell you, in Massachusetts, we continue to find ways to work together, and I'm very, very proud of it. That will help us weather the storm of uncertain times. It will be that bipartisanship. It will be that relationship that we have with the federal government, with our federal legislative delegation, with our local officials, all working together to make sure that we can respond to what we know now and what might be around the corner that we don't. And so we're going to be working very diligently at that. Again, I've tried to give you a little bit of an overview. Happy to talk longer if anybody wants to risk a very long answer. But I just want to take a final minute and say to everyone in this room who on Thursday night thinks about writing paychecks on Friday morning and making sure that you have enough resources so that people that depend on you can know they'll have that paycheck and know that their own household budget is stable. For everyone who does that, thank you. You may not get thanked enough. We really need you, and we really appreciate you, and we really want to be partners with you. So I'm going to stop there again because my other colleagues, I think, Susan, we marked them up for 90 minutes each, and I want to make sure they have that opportunity. But I just want to tell you that in a time where there's a lot of gloom, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of anxiety, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, we still have a lot of strength. And that strength comes from all of us. Thank you.
For those of you who are writing payroll checks tonight, I'm available. Just want to mention that. No, thank you, Senator Tuck. Our next speaker, do you have to go? I have to go. Oh, but you're coming back. You are coming back. Because now we're all good. State Representative Sherman, because you are an excellent.
Hey Bruce, that's us. Newburyport, Salisbury, Merrimack, and precincts 2 through 5 of Gainesville. I share experience with my partner, Adrian Ross. This past year, I have spent working on a bill with small business leaders. And I wanted to tell the story of how this came together, because I feel like it's a really good example of how we can be partners in policy making. So when I began my term in 2023, I was assigned to the Joint Committee on Cannabis Policy, which was sort of surprising to me. When I reached out to all of our local cannabis businesses, at the time the regulatory agency was under so much fire, and you could tell it was not a good time to be in the industry. So we started conversing. And 2 of the local businesses, Green Bloom and Nova Beverage, they started a spreadsheet. And it really was a wish list based upon their experiences in other states where they felt the regulations were better. They made a better product, a better industry. And we started there. We literally started with a spreadsheet. And we took this wish list, and let me just say, these small business owners did not hire lobbyists. They did not hire an attorney. We took their list, and we went to the State House, and we worked with the cannabis policy staffers. And they gave us advice on how do we turn these ideas to statutory language. From there, we started working with an advocacy group called the Mass Cannabis Coalition. And they put together a coalition of small business leaders from around the state. And I'm pleased to say that by January of this year, we turned in a bill, not just one, but multiple bills that represented all of the ideas that we started with at the beginning of last year. Yesterday, that bill got a hearing. H-171 is an omnibus bill. And by the way, there was a lot of reticence about even doing this. But you could tell that there was a window of opportunity, that there was a chance that we could provide real reform, grassroots level reform to this industry. But we had to be prepared. And we did. We turned in our bills by January 17th. And yesterday, H-171 got its first hearing. And people from around the state came and they testified on the need for these regulatory changes. And to me, that felt like an enormous accomplishment. So, quite as interesting as TV Mix, but it is about marijuana. All right, thank you so very much, and I'm sure I'm grateful to be in partnership with these legislators. Bruce, you talked about it, but you're so very fun.
So Stevie Nicks, huh? Now the marijuana connection. Thanks, Representative. And we are delighted also tonight to have with us Representative Adrian Ramos.
Okay, well, thank you for having me again this year. I really appreciate the opportunity. I represent the 14th Essex, which is North Andover, Boxford, Groveland, West Newbury, and Amesbury. So along the river brings me up here, and I always enjoy coming to Newburyport and getting to see everyone here. So much like Representative Shand, I too have a bill I filed this session that came to me through a business owner. Business owner happens to be my dad, who owns a scrap metal recycling yard, and said, you know, what are you doing up there on Beacon Hill? Well, I'm trying to pass bills, make things better. Well, can you stop the fires in my scrap yard? Well, I don't even know what that means. So it turns out that the scrap yards across the state have had spontaneous fires from lithium-ion batteries. And it's been quite a problem, and it's caused damage, it's caused injuries, and so I did a little more research into it, spoke with some other business owners, spoke with the state fire marshal, and I have filed a bill to establish a program for recycling of batteries, including the lithium batteries. So I think that just goes to show you really, the relationship between legislators and business owners is really, it is the cornerstone of how we move policy forward in a way that benefits, you know, everybody in our communities and in our hometowns. I think, you know, it's not just in this case a matter of consumer protection, but also safety for our communities. I mean, some of these these fires can be quite dangerous for the people working in the area. And, at my daughter's middle school last year, somebody hit a laptop and it combusted and started smoking and started a fire in the middle school. So just, again, looking at how we can keep our communities safe, you just never know where those ideas are going to come from. So I hope that you will keep those lines of communications open and know, we're here to listen. We may not always be able to file a bill, but we're also open to connect you with, whoever the regulators may be. Early on in our first term, I believe Representative Shannon and I both signed on to a bill that plumbers, or not, I'm sorry, not a bill, a CMR, that plumbers had come to and said, there's this regulation and we're trying to build more unisex bathrooms, but it's hard and we need the CMR changed. And we signed on and worked with some other legislators, and that didn't even need to go through the House and Senate, and it was changed on the administrative side. So again, I hope you'll know you can come to us, particularly as we are coming into these uncertain times. As someone who's in my mid-40s, I never thought I'd be talking about a recession again. Right? I thought, okay, well, I lived through the Great Recession just as I was starting my professional life. I managed to buckle down and get a job, and it took some years to kind of come out from that, but here I am. Didn't think I'd be looking at that again. I'm sure many of you in this room are probably thinking the same thing, but we've been through it and we were creative then. I'm sure we'll be able to be creative now. But just please know our doors are open and we want to work with you, we want to meet with you, we want to know what we can do. And as we look at this budget, as Bruce said, it is tight, it is tough. It does not keep up with the cost of living and inflation rates we've seen in the last few years. And that is really hard. I'm sure many of you have employees looking at you saying, well, why can't I get a 5% raise or a 10% raise when that's what my cost of living has gone up to? Knowing, where we are, we've all had to make those tough decisions. So we're here to try to support you in any way we can and be creative. And I, too, am thankful for people like Nancy, who really does get creative and helps businesses, and grassroots, and helps us as a community really look at, what are we doing to be successful and how can we multiply that? If you haven't used Nancy's services or you haven't spoken with her, please do, particularly if there's something, if there's some numbers that she can help you dig into, because she really is creative, and we're happy to connect you with people like Nancy or other people on the ground who might be able to offer you similar services, or just, again, help you creatively problem solve as we're getting into these tough times. One last thing, this session I'm honored to be the vice chair on the Joint Committee on Housing. I'm sitting on a special commission there. We're really looking to tackle some difficult housing things so that we can get these units built. I'm thrilled that we were able to pass the Affordable Home Act last session. I'm excited to see ADUs, the regulations around ADUs by right coming to fruition, and people starting to build those. I'm hopeful that particularly in communities like Amesbury and Newburyport and West Newbury, that we're able to see some of those ADUs built so that we can help people age at home and age with dignity, and also present an opportunity for maybe them the homeowners to bring family members in, pass that house down to their children, because then they're able to stay in the EDU. So it's not a one big solution, but it is again just one other way to kind of dig away at this problem. And I think we've got a lot of work to do there. I think we really need to look at middle housing, not just rental units and not large single families. I think we need to find more condos and more places for condos and townhomes. And I think that there are spaces here. And I love to hear that Newburyport and Amesbury are doing creative things with housing, and they're not afraid of that, and they see the value in that and the value to local businesses. So, and I will stick around for questions. Happy to hear them. But Bruce cannot get the microphone first.
Thank you, Representative. I have to say, I did mention this before, but I feel like after your comments, I should. When I was reporting and we had any issue, it didn't really matter if it involved the consumer. We went to the State House and we called our state senators and state reps to get the real story, the information, and oftentimes to encourage them or to at least alert them to a situation that ended up in legislation and a change in law. And that's another reason why we all love you. So there is that. Now it's my honor to be able to introduce, and I'm searching because I don't think we've ever met, Kristen Kastner.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to be here. Thank you all of you for being here. And thank you for the Greater Newburyport Chamber, Nate and Tom for bringing us all together. Thank you. You're here because you're members of the community that want to be together and do such good work, and you care about your community. And I just, just a round of applause for all the work that all of you are doing as well. There's so much that has been said, so I'm going to just jump to where I'd like to talk about. But I do share so much of the passion of my colleagues, and it's been wonderful to have, to work with your own Representative Shand, Representative Ramos, who came in together to the House, and learned so much from Senator Tarr. I'm just so disappointed I missed the delegation carpool on the way back. We've done a lot of great work. There's been so much already mentioned about some of the economic development and housing bond bills that were passed last year. We're looking forward to working on the environmental bond bill as well as transportation this year, as well as the Municipal Empowerment Act that didn't quite get over the finish line in the last session. But there's so many pieces. I mean, everything's interconnected, and all these pieces need to come together. We are in uncertain times. But the one thing that I feel so proud of and glad to live here in Massachusetts is that since there were people before us here, but since here and our Arbella landed here and we had ingenuity and curiosity and grit and we figured this out, and I know we can do the same, and we have tremendous people in industry, whether it's innovation, a lot of the new innovation economies, life science, blue economy and maritime 2.0, where we're going with that. Climate tech, but also, as Senator mentioned, our creative economies and our artists and our arts. And post-COVID, what was so interesting to see was, obviously we had this exodus from kind of our office environments that are now kind of starting to come back. But you saw, at least when I first started to run, you talk to people that say, oh, well, and, I was an artist on the side, and now I'm doing this full time, and I love it, and I'm not sure if I'm going to go back to work. But providing these spaces now, and looking at space differently from our office environments we went from kind of office to lab, and what does that look like? But to have our creative economies and new technologies. And I was at the Massachusetts Competitive Partnership meeting last week, which the focus of the meeting was how many small, even just ideas, a person with an idea, maybe two people, how do we foster that idea that's coming out of our institutions, coming out of our communities, and foster that into a 2-person to 10-person to 40-person to 400-person company here in Massachusetts. And all of you know people with ideas, and how do we help you and give you the tools for success to bring together and business institution, government. I mean, it's a 3-legged stool for success. How can we all help to make sure that we're thriving, both in our communities, my background's in planning and community development, how our downtown's thriving, our small business thriving, our Commonwealth thriving, and all of us, and obviously everything's connected with housing and electricity, and it's foundational. And Nancy Gardell, I think I probably have agritourism tattooed or a t-shirt on, because every time I see her, she said, I know you want to have an agritourism summit, but our local foods and our food systems and our food security systems are, I know you've all met so many people in the business, but they have got it figured out, man. I mean, what they do with the smallest amount in terms of an investment, it's, once you get a van or once you have cold storage, and the exponential reward that we can. So how can we really work together to figure out how we can support our existing industries, what new industries are coming in, and just really look at economic stability throughout our region as well. So I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy to be working with all of you, and I know things together. So thank you so much for having all.
Thank you, Representative. When she first came up, she said to me, Susan, I just wanted you to know, I watched you my whole life. So did my parents. I know. I'll tell you. Did I marry him? That's nice. I respect that. That's good. I just have to take a moment because we have a couple more speakers, but you really, you're all amazing. You are. You can tell your hearts and your souls are in it, and as constituents, we couldn't be luckier. So don't forget that as you're sitting here and listening to each other, right? Am I right about that? I know I am. So from Topsville, some call him mayor. And that's how I was introduced to him as the mayor of Topsville. And I said, wow, Topsville has a mayor. Topsville has an absolute, whatever you want to call him, but I think your official title is town administrator. Ladies and gentlemen, Kevin Hartoon.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kevin Hartoon. I'm town administrator at Topsville, as Susan said. I've had a chance to meet some of you, but not all of you, and I hope by the end of tonight I get a chance to meet every one of you. Topsville is an incredible little community. As we've joked earlier, it's bookends Newburyport on one end, Topsville on the other. And there's a lot of good things in between, but I am biased, and I think there's a lot of really great things happening in Topsville as well. So I'm going to share a little bit about what we're up to. Before I do that, I do want to thank Nate and Tom. Nate and Tom have been huge partners of Topsville since I started. A lot of really synergy, maybe I call it synergy, between what you guys are trying to accomplish and what we're trying to accomplish. And we've been able to partner on some really innovative and forward-thinking ideas of how we can bring businesses and people into our downtown and activate Topsville and share our business community with all of you. So thank you both. And also thank the entire Rosa family. They are constituents of mine, so I have to make sure I call them out. They've been amazing. They're prime examples of when you set out to create change, economic development, positive change, you can't do it alone. You can't do it with your staff. You got to look at people within your community and those who are interested, those who are bought into a plan and want to be a part of it. And the Roses are tremendous people, first and foremost, and great partners of ours in all that we're trying to do. So thank you. So I'm just giving a little bit of philosophical approach of how we've gone about the last 5 years in Topsville. Some of you might not be aware of it, but we've been head down. Our number one town goal the last 5 years has been economic development. And I used to be the chief of staff in Beverly. A lot of the projects that happened in Full Street and Cabot Street brought over, I think a big part of that was to help, not at that scale, right, but to bring a lot of similar type of change in Topsville, to bring businesses into our downtown, to activate the vacant spaces. And first thing I did when I started, after getting my office and finding the bathroom at Town Hall, was to go out and walk the streets and meet every single business owner I could at the Topsville downtown. And I was shocked that almost across the board, a lot of the feedback we got is Topsville not a business friendly place to be. Said we're going to change that. And we started a project review team with all of our permitting entities at Town Hall, where anybody, mom or pop shop, up to multifamily development and everything in between, can carve out time before they start the process to meet with us, to understand what our goals are, how they align with what their goals are, and how they need to move through the process. It saves money, it saves time, it creates efficiency. My background is commercial real estate, so I understand how that can make a big difference in either pursuing a project in the community or not. And we've had great success seeing some really good projects happen as a result of those partnerships. And we really focus on partnerships as being a key component in moving things forward. Because again, you can't do it alone. And so we spent a lot of time with our existing business community, recruiting new businesses, had a lunch and learn series of lunch with you folks at one point. Got to share with a dozen or so people some of the things we've been up to. I'm very proud of the work the team's done. Our partnerships with our state delegation couldn't do without you as well. And the leadership of the select board. I have 3 core elements of how to make economic development happen in the community, especially one that's been a little sleepy and it's taken a little work to get there. 1, it's the businesses and the real estate, people who own it. 2, it's the broader community. And 3, it's the leadership. And we've worked really hard over the last 5.5 years to align all 3 of those. And if you align all 3, I really believe, and I've seen it, when we say anything's possible, realistically, when we say anything's possible, if everyone's working together and have a similar goal that they're trying to achieve. Just some highlights of the last 5 years, we did a whole rebranding, we put wayfinding signs out, so people on Route 1, we have Route 1 that goes through Topsail, Route 97, we have 95. It's the center of Essex County. We have a tremendous amount of traffic that comes through Topsail. Let's capture those people, let's bring them into downtown. So we did a branding exercise with our website, our social media push that we put out, which we never had, we created it. We also have wayfinding signs, like I said, that it took a year and a half to design because we had to get it right. But we had a grant from the state that allowed us to do that for $100,000 because people went through Topsail and the businesses. And so we've been working on, we put an ice rink on the common. We built a pocket park in the downtown of Blake property, right in the center of downtown. We've been downtown since August 24th of last year, since ribbon cutting. You have to go. It's exciting. There's a really great pocket park where there's tables and benches and people are grabbing coffee at Sumi's, which is one of our new coffee shops that opened up a couple years ago. There's a number of other great entrepreneurs who invested in their time and their money in Topsail, and very proud of the work that they've done to help rise our business community. So we passed 3A, which was huge. 93% of the community and county passed it last year, which was amazing. Other towns have said no thank you. We said, let's take it as an opportunity. And we've done just that. Now we're talking to some people who might actually do some work on those properties, which would be very interesting. We've got the Topsail Fair, which brings 500,000 people over an 11-day period. How do we bring those people into our downtown? Right? And those are the things that we're working on that gets us excited. And it's passion. We have a great team of people at Topsail Town Hall who are passionate about it. And I really believe at the local level, it has to be a passion project to bring people through, wanting to hear the excitement. The 8 liquor licenses we got from the State House last year, that helps. We have Alfalfa Farm. Does anyone know Alfalfa Farm? It's a landmark, right? So that was on the verge of becoming 5 single-family homes last year when the patriarch passed away, 4 children trying to disposition the property. We worked really hard to try to find the right buyer, and Essex County Brewery just purchased it. And this summer, they just submitted permits to renovate the entire campus of weddings, of events. They're going to make it distillery, brewery, and keep the winery. And so it will be a landmark that's always been a landmark, but now it's been a little sleepy. Now it's going to be active. Number of events, block parties at the old highway garage that we've done the last couple of years as well, just bring people to our downtown. And it's so much fun to see people in our community have opportunities to do things. And one thing I'll mention before I turn it over, I've talked for hours on this stuff because I love it. We have a highway garage in our downtown. It used to be an EPW building. We put out the RFP. We've been trying for 5 years. We zoned it. We got a liquor license on it. We just got 2 responses on it for each of them restaurants with multiple concepts a part of it as well. So it has multiple revenue sources, which is really exciting. But come to Topsail. Come visit me. My door's open. Or friends of yours look at that location. We'll find that location. And we'll do everything we can to make sure you were there successful in Topsail. And I will end with one last story. A few weeks ago, we created an economic community development committee when I first started as well. We brought 25 of those business owners that I knocked their front doors and I said 5 years ago, what do you think about Topsail? I said, not so good. Every single one of them, plus a number of other people in that room, went around and said how great Topsail is, how wonderful it is, how excited they are to be here. It was a moment where there was almost tears, because it was a moment where we saw people's mentality of partners turn to a place that we knew was possible. We weren't sure how we were going to get there, but it was a great moment for us, and it's going to continue to grow as we continue to do all the good things we're trying to do with Topsail. So come visit me anytime I
Passion, truly love your passion. So Nancy, who doesn't know Nancy, right? I'm very thrilled to say that we've met each other many times. I mean, you may not remember, but I do, because no, I should. But I mean, anytime there's any Nancy, for those of you who don't know, her official title is the Executive Director of the North of Boston Convention and Visitors Bureau. But she's just a great person, Nancy, go down.
This morning, you helped to change my life. Who I remember it. So Susan won't remember this, but she was the keynote speaker. I'm having a very big fangirl evening. Okay, so Susan was speaking at a Framingham Metro West Chamber of Commerce meeting, and she was our keynote speaker. And I was working for the United Way, and we had partnered on this event, and it was a big women in business Chamber of Commerce thing. You know, as women were starting, a little over 20 years ago, as women were starting to really gain footholds as entrepreneurs in Metro West. And Susan came, and man, oh man, she nailed it, and she knocked it out of the park. And she talked about the power of community and entrepreneurs and the power of the Chamber of Commerce. And 6 months later, I accepted a job at the Martha's Vineyard Chamber of Commerce, where I sat for 16 years trying to live the words that Susan had spoken that inspired me so much. So thank you. But I'm a fangirl to a lot of other people in this room tonight, because it is such an honor to be invited by Tom and by Nate, who used to sit on our board, which is how we met and how I got acquainted 3 years ago with the power of the Greater Newburyport Chamber of Commerce. So I'm so grateful for this invitation. I also get to spend some time haunting Representatives Ramos, Shand, and Kastner, and especially Senator Carr, who are tireless advocates for this community. And every conversation that I have with them is, we're working so hard to help, we're working so hard to make a difference. So the least that I can do as your regional tourism director is join them in that effort. Now, I brought paper because I'm going to finish with some big numbers, but I want to tell you, I just came from spending 3 days in Newport at a trade show with international tour operators. Think of them as travel agents. These are people who sell New England back home in their countries as a premier destination. Now, as the person who's responsible for presenting every community in Essex County as a premier, world-class, year-round destination to the world. That is a place where 10% of the $30 billion that visitors spent in Massachusetts, making Massachusetts the 6th most popular state for domestic travelers and the 10th most popular state for international travelers, and we own 10% of that visitor spending right here in the 34 communities that make up Essex County. Given the times, how those international tour operators, what was on their mind, and what's been on my mind are those people coming back. Just to give you a sense of scale, when somebody comes from overseas to the United States, they spend, on average, $2,800 per person per visit. Wow was right. 18% of our visitor spending, that $3 billion in Essex County alone, 18% of that comes from travelers from overseas. that when you see them on the street, you give them a hand, you help them out, you welcome them. You welcome them into your businesses. You help to showcase the wonderful things that you love about your communities to them. My job is to convince them to come here. Here of all places, right here. And we do that in a lot of ways. You know, we talk about our vibrant arts and culture, that agritourism, aquatourism, the food, right? Talk about the innovation. We talk about American heritage. And we talk about, let's face it, the embarrassing abundance of Mother Nature in all of our communities. But why do I do all this? Because tourism is the third largest industry in Massachusetts after medical and green technology. That's right, the third largest industry. It is the single item on the state's long and lengthy budget that has a return on investment. In fact, every time the state of Massachusetts gives me $1 to promote Essex County, I return $8 in tax revenue to the state coffers. Part of that comes back to local municipalities. So now let me finish with the good news. In an independent study, not the Gardello fantasy, but an independent study done by the Runyon Group in 2023, calendar year 2023. Direct visitor spending. I should define this. When I say the word visitor, I'm talking about somebody who travels 50 miles or more to get here, or spends a night in a hotel. So now we understand our terms. We think about tourism spending in 3 ways. Direct spending. That's all the stuff that you would think about. Hotels, restaurants, they go shopping, they go out on a schooner sail, all of those things. Direct spending in the greater Newburyport Chamber's 4-town footprint. This is a big number. Over $176 million, up 2% from the year before, generating a payroll of $44.7 million, supporting 1,488 jobs, generating $11.5 million in state revenue, and returning $4.1 million to the 4 communities in that footprint. But wait, I'm not done. If you think that news is good, then we think about indirect spending. That's when a restaurant hires a local cleaner to come in and clean, or a hotel does that. Or a retailer is so excited because they got to go buy more stuff to stock their store with. Then there's induced spending. So the bartender gets paid from their job and gets to pay rent or buy groceries, go out to the fire departments. You know, it's the spending that continues. It's that domino effect. And that induced and indirect spending equals that direct spending. That doubles it. So we're talking about, just in the footprint of the greater Newburyport Chamber of Commerce, $350 million in spending related to tourism. So, get ready, because your season to shine is coming on. I get it. It was raining in Newport 2 for 3 days. Sun was coming out behind me as I was leaving. I didn't take that personally, but I'm telling you this. Visitors will come. Domestic visitors will come. International visitors will come. They're okay. Our travelers are okay. Our tourism market is not going to be destroyed this year. We all feel a little chaotic. We all got that knot in our stomach every once in a while. But they're coming. And you're going to see that visitor spending again. Why? Because I'm telling them to. And I'm telling them to do it in very dynamic ways and in partnership with your chamber. So I'm delighted to be here, honored to be with you, happy to talk to anybody about tourism efforts. Thank you so much.
So like every time you speak, the passion is wonderful. And I do remember the phrase. I think you were wearing the same outfit. Sure. No, I know I was. So now what we're going to do is first of all, thanks to all of our presenters tonight. Now we thought we'd go around the room and ask you each to stand, say a little something about yourselves. That's a joke. But if you have a question, and I'm sure that there are a lot, this is the time that we have a lot of 4 questions. So if I see your hand, I will call on you, and you can either come to the microphone or stand and speak up loudly. No questions at all? This is really, if you don't ask a question, Bruce is going to do another 90 minutes. I saw your hand in the back first. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Crystal. I own a yoga studio. I really, Crystal, would you mind coming down? I don't have a order for you.
A second. Oh, good. I'll take the second. That's great. Crystal? We're on. Well, tell me for the second question. This is Crystal, ladies and gentlemen.
So my name is Crystal, and I own Resilience. It's a brand new yoga studio and cafe in Newbury, Massachusetts. My question is for I'm the state representative. So in my previous role, I was the head of HR for PCI, which in 2023 we had a chemical explosion in Newburyport, Massachusetts. I closed that business with the site director in January 2024. And myself and 80 of the employees that I laid off after that terrible disaster had an awful time with unemployment. We couldn't get in contact to get the benefits that we had worked for. I myself was the first time that I had been unemployed in my 16-year career. And it took me multiple phone calls, tears, and finally I was able to get my first check in August after being unemployed since April. So my question for both of you is if you're doing anything to improve the unemployment department so that people don't have to suffer as we might move into a recession.
Great question.
So first and foremost, we are helping, our offices help people connect and get their benefits on the daily basis, and I do mean literally daily. So if you do know somebody in your community who is having a hard time getting through to unemployment insurance, please have them contact us, because we get answers within less than 24 hours, maybe 24 hours, but they don't like to see us angry. And so we get a lot of response. But beyond that, there's been a couple things going on there. They have had their own staffing problems, but I will say, even from my own experience, we're seeing those numbers tick back up, and the training that's happening, so people are much more experienced and understanding of what's going on, so they're able to process things quicker. But they're also expanding, and I don't remember, Bruce, you might remember if it was 2023 or 2024, but we passed an IT bond bill to really improve systems like unemployment insurance and really bring it into the modern day. And they are actively working on that. In fact, just today I got a notification of a training to kind of talk about what is going on there and how they're modernizing that. So I know it has caused a lot of peril and people wait a long time. I think the other thing that has been a challenge is the uptick in unemployment fraud. And so it's not just a quick phone call, it's often a lengthy conversation, and you have to really go through and make sure that there isn't fraud, or people who didn't realize someone had falsely filed an unemployment claim under their social security number, and now it's, years later, and you have to remedy that before you can move forward. So in this area, sometimes you have people who have lived in New Hampshire or worked in New Hampshire, so it can get a little complicated, but it is something we're well aware of, and we're working closely with and trying to help people move through it. So, Bruce, do you want to add anything?
I just want to add, in terms of the IT section, so we've just, in the Ways and Means Committee, heard from all the departments, and when unemployment came up and IT came up, it was, what are we doing? This portal doesn't work. So there is a new portal for unemployment that's coming out in May. There has been an understanding that it has been extensively difficult, especially post-COVID. Thank you for your question. Call your legislator. We get calls, I think we get one every day. And really try to help walk you through it. It is difficult. It should be getting better with the new portal. Thank you.
Hi, Craig Somberg at the Firehouse. I want to thank Nancy for the shout out. The question is about arts funding, which obviously federally is down the drain right now. So, and we appreciate that Massachusetts is a strong state for arts funding, but anything coming down the pipe we should know about in terms of arts funding?
We're having a parade. And a big pizza. I can tell you this. In their wisdom, a number of years ago, our state legislators established two funds. One for tourism, arts, and culture, and another, a committee to overlook two funds. A tourism trust fund, from which the public funds that I receive every year come from. And that, by the way, y'all don't pay for that. That comes from occupancy tax. So when people stay in hotels, that occupancy tax, 1% of it goes into the tourism trust fund. So it's, none of you are being taxed on it. Okay, so. That's a first. The Mass Cultural Council also has a trust fund. And historically, our legislators and our administration respect very much what is able to be accomplished. Remember, $10 million in the Tourism Trust Fund resulted in $30 billion in visitor spending. So I'm just saying, we're pretty effective with it, as with the arts. And the administration has repeatedly told us they're not going to touch those trust funds. So we don't expect an increase in funding, but we're very optimistic about level funding this year. And if changes come, they'll come directly from the governor's office, but not from our legislators.
I have to say something else. Being from Florida, I think I mentioned Richard, I live full-time in Florida. Everybody talked earlier about, people here moving there, or New Hampshire, no income tax. So if you go buy a hat in Florida that says, no one knows what it says. That's another way. But Florida, great state of Florida. I mean, you're going to pay probably anywhere between 8 to 10% sales tax on that, depending on where you're buying it. And what's the sales tax you pay in Massachusetts? Like 6, exactly. So there are those things too that Massachusetts is great about, in talking about where's the money coming from. And I just felt that I needed to remind everybody about that, because when you guys go to buy clothing or whatever, and you pay no sales tax on a lot of things. In Florida, we're paying like 6 to 8% on that stuff. And I know that that's not a direct answer, but it's all about where the money's coming from. It's what?
You pay a sales tax,
Right. Absolutely pay a sales tax. But in Florida, we pay a sales tax on things you don't pay a sales tax on here in Massachusetts.
If you wear
right, exactly. Right. And in Florida, we pay for the nose. Other questions? Oh, good, okay.
Hi, my name is Megan O'Neill. I'm with Essex County Habitat for Humanity, and I was excited to hear you talking about accessory dwelling units. I think those can be a great part of our solution to affordable housing. One of my concerns is that there's no funding available for low-income homeowners, but I am excited to see that some of your colleagues have proposed I forget the name of it, an act to establish an accessory dwelling unit trust fund. So there is a proposal that is out there now. I'm curious about how you all are thinking about that and what the support is for that in the budget this year. Anybody want to take that?
Boy, I teased Bruce and here I am twice. That's what I get. I don't think that there's anything in consideration in the budget this year because, and again, you know, it is new. It is something that, you know, this is a tough budget year, right? So we're not going to be really creating new funds. And I think we got to really delve into what does that look like and how would that work. I don't really know much about it. Someone else has raised it with me recently, but it hasn't had a hearing yet. So where we go with that, it's a little unclear. And I'll tell you, I think what differentiates it from things like the MBTA communities is that nobody is requiring EDUs be built, right? It's not an unfunded mandate, which is that phrase that everybody loves to say, unfunded mandate. So it's not an unfunded mandate. It's really an opportunity for private homeowners to take and build, whether it's attached or detached. And, you know, for some towns, it's a little scary to think that, you know, we could possibly have, I don't know, 1,000 ADUs. For those of you who maybe don't know, ADU is accessory dwelling unit, which used to be called, or known more colloquially as an in-law apartment. And, you know, there are some towns who have always embraced ADUs and given them out, or permitted them, and some that haven't and are a little bit more restrictive. And so this provides it by right. So I think, you know, we're in the early phase. The regulations, the draft regulations have just been rolling out. Towns are just really starting to, and cities are just starting to approve what the new regulations are going to look like. So I think it's a little early, but I do know, I have spoken to town administrators and managers, that there are some places where people are excited and there's already sort of a wait list for people looking to get those permits and get moving on them. So.
Bruce?
I think that's why Tom put the 4 chairs up there. I think there was a musical act that was going to come and use them, but I'm not sure. So I just, first of all, we are very, very sensitive to, Stevie Nicks is already here, but anyway, it's important to remember that just last session we passed the Homes Act, which is the largest housing bond bill in the history of the Commonwealth, with over $6 billion in it. So there are some funds that are in the pipeline to try to build this housing. The second thing I would point out is that we are looking at other bills like the one for ADU funding. But I would also point out, and this is something that we as legislators always have to stress, that bond funding is different than other kinds of funding. So we can get the bond bill passed, but the administration still has to choose to do the borrowing and fit it into the statewide bond cap. So one of the drivers of the state budget, and I mentioned this earlier, is the cost of debt service. And so we live with a cap on all state borrowing to make sure that debt service doesn't become unsustainable. So first of all, we're working through that with the Homes Act now. Some of that money is making its way through. And second, if we were to do something in addition for ADUs, we would have to work through that 2-stage process. So we would identify bond money, and then over time, it would get spent. But we're all very excited about ADUs because we think it has an incredible amount of potential. And I would just say editorially that, in my experience, the biggest obstacle to creating housing is always where to site it. And so funding can usually come if we can make the decision about where it's going to go. And this is an opportunity for a tip of the hat to the city of Newburyport, which has 2 active projects going on right now at the Brown School, which is a reuse and adaptation, and also at the former Kmart site. And I like Blue Lake Specials as much as anybody, but that's a part of the past. And the mayor and the campground site. And so that is consistent with the kind of local leadership that builds housing. And Kevin is also working on that in the town of Topsfield. So we are looking at that, but just wanted to let everybody know there is some other funding coming, and it will be coming over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yes, sir. Hi, everybody. My name is David Service. I work at St. Jean's Credit Union by day, but by night, I do a lot of work in Georgetown as the town moderator and the chair of the Affordable Housing Trust. So I have a comment and then a question. The comment is this, that we in Georgetown, a small community, 7,000 to 8,000 people, we've been trying to buy units from local homeowners when they go on the market or before they hit the market. And we've been successful with that. The problem that I see and what we experience, I should say the problem, the opportunity and challenge is this. The time we buy the property and we close on it, to get it on the SHI list is a very cumbersome, long-term project. And it seems to me that, and again, I call it THCD, but it's the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, is that we need more help there, guys. I told the governor this about a year ago when I saw her at a meeting. I said, you need more help. It shouldn't take us this long. You know, we've had a house that's sat almost 12 months, almost a year, before we could turn it over and sell it as an affordable unit in the town of Georgetown. What a deed writer and the whole process. So I ask you to go back and look at their staffing, and please add some more funding to get some more people. That was my comment. The question is this. My friend from Topsfield, right, he could attest to this, that we as cities and towns face many unfunded mandates from the state. And that's all well and good. I'm not complaining about that. What I'm complaining about is the ability to raise enough money to fund our operations. And numerous communities, and it's probably record numbers, are going to be looking at override votes coming up. We are in Georgetown to the tune of $6 million. It's not because of poor management, it's just because we have been putting a Band-Aid on it for many years and doing the best we can with what we have. Is there any discussion or any, I'd say, the old whisper number on Wall Street, is there any whispering at the State House about repealing or increasing Prop 2.5, which came out in 1980, by the way, so this is now 2025. Is there any appetite to maybe tackle that to boost that up a little bit for the cities and towns, whether it becomes 4.5? I mean, 2.5 really is unrealistic. I know it was to give it back to the people at the cities and towns to vote, but I think it's time we take a look at that as a Commonwealth. So. Nobody wants to touch that one.
Discuss that with you, but
All right, I'll take the microphone again. But I would say, first of all, David, thank you for your public service as a town moderator in the town of Georgetown. It's phenomenal. We all appreciate it very much. Second, one of the important tools that communities can use that not everyone has is an affordable housing trust fund. And we encourage folks to do that because it's a tool to acquire property in the way that you just described. Third, with regard to the SHI, just so everyone knows what that means, it's subsidized housing inventory. And when you have more than 10% of your housing on the SHI, it means that you can declare a safe harbor against Chapter 40B projects that might come into town and seek to override a lot of the local zoning. And so that's why a lot of communities want to get to that 10% number on the SHI. I would just take a moment to editorialize, David, and say that I think we are far too restrictive as to what counts for the SHI. So, for instance, generally you need to have a subsidy that's provided by only 1 or 2 state agencies. The unit could still be affordable, but it doesn't hit the count. And I think that's an area that we could try to revisit. HLC, Housing and Livable Communities, is definitely oversubscribed right now because of everything we're trying to do. But your point is well taken. It's run by Ed Augustus, who is no stranger to this region. In fact, thanks to Representative Shand, he visited not all that long ago. We took him to a bunch of different sites because Newburyport is playing such a leadership role in creating housing. And, what was your other thing? No, so with regard to Proposition 2.5, there has been some discussion, but I don't think there's a lot of appetite for it. And the reason is because one of the crushing things in our economy is the cost of property taxes. And one of the elusive things that folks have been trying to wrestle with over the years is how do we find a way for the state to play a greater role in reducing property taxes? So there are a couple of examples. So for instance, when we give a veteran's property tax exemption, the state picks up a piece of that, which enables the municipality to reduce the tax. So there are a couple of tools like that. And so I don't see a lot of appetite for the change to 2.5, but I would remind everyone that ultimately the voters have the opportunity to choose to exceed that level of spending if they would like to. And so that safety valve is one of the reasons. Now, we know it's difficult. There's no mistake about that. But that's one of the reasons why you haven't heard great enthusiasm about trying to change it. But it's a point well taken, and we very much understand the plight of the communities. That's why I mentioned earlier we're working so hard to try to provide some relief for the schools, because in Georgetown, one of the cost drivers is the cost of education. We know that, great schools, but we need to do better at trying to help support them so that you don't need as much of an override.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to that, and thank you, David Surface from Georgetown. I failed to say I'm Kristen Gathers, I'm in Essex District. My communities are Hamilton, Ipswich, Raleigh, Newbury, Georgetown, and Topsfield, so just everything south and a little bit west of here. Just with adding on to this conversation, I think I would just want to say that I think what we're really trying to do is look at ways in which our communities are all really stressed right now, and there's a lot of things that are completely out of your control as to what that stress is, whether it's healthcare costs, health insurance costs, and transportation costs, whether it's just they're wildly high percentages of any increase. So as well as ways in which we can produce revenue locally. The 2.5 question has come up. It's come up certainly around capital projects, but I would agree with the senator in terms of the hesitancy to get into that conversation. But are there other ways that we can help diversify the economic drivers within the community? I would continue to pay attention to the Municipal Empowerment Act, which is a little bit controversial, but also what are those levers, but also at this point kind of opt in as to what levers you want to be able to pull. So as well as, are there any regional partnerships or state partnerships that we can try to offset those really big peaks and valleys of unexpected costs that your communities, many small communities, are facing each year. But overall, I think just know that we're all a partner with the communities. We're seeing it. We're working through the supplemental budget of the Fair Share Amendment to try to assist and alleviate some of those stresses moving forward, and we'll continue to do so. Thanks.
Follow-up question.
I have a follow-up question.
Sure.
I don't know if there's a one question per person.
For $1,000, no.
It would be a $1,000 donation. I work for a nonprofit, so feel free. So I want to tag into two of Senator Tarr's comments. One is it's really difficult to cite housing. The last projects that I've tried to cite have been for 2 homes, and they face opposition. Any place that I'm trying to put housing faces opposition.
From
those neighbors, yeah. People are worried about school, impact on schools and traffic and safety and water use and everything imaginable. And so, and the other thing that you mentioned is declining school enrollment. So the reality is we have declining school enrollment in these suburban communities, and schools need revenue. There's the capacity in our schools. Is there a way that we can tie funding to accepting more housing development in some of these communities? And is that part of the formula that you're looking at, similar to 40R? And how is that being considered?
Sure. Wow, I hit the microphone directly. So, first of all, you hit the nail right on the And so hopefully we can continue to work through that with partnership. But yes, the way that we can incent it is through Chapter 40R and Chapter 40S, which seek to bring more school funding into the community if you build housing. So yes, we do have those tools. And I'm so glad you made this point, because oftentimes now when we have housing discussions, we hear about the overwhelming burden they will create on the school system, and yet we know that most of the school systems in our area have experienced significant declines in enrollment, and that is what's translating to their loss of Chapter 70 revenue. So great point. You should have done it here with us.
Other questions?
I think a quick question about clarification of that. So you're speaking statewide about that, right?
Speaking statewide about that.
Yeah.
So could you clarify the question?
So,
No, about that.
So enrollment in like, so for instance, I'm representing the Valley Charter School.
Yeah.
Or the third school, right? So regionally, we have not seen a decline in enrollment. So when you say you've seen a decline in enrollment, you're speaking statewide, right?
Well, I'm speaking, yes, there's quite a bit. So
Can we specify this area?
we're all jumping up. So yeah, in the county, so for instance, Triton has experienced the loss of hundreds of students over the last 10 years, as has Pentucket, and a lot of our school systems, and Amesbury as well. So, significant declines. So,
It's not that they're going anywhere. It's not that they're going anywhere. It's that people aren't moving in with kids in ways that they did in the past, and we aren't having as many kids as we did 10 and 20 years ago. So there's there's a few different factors. I mean, I'm sure some of your there's a little bit of a bump in population around COVID, but really beyond that, I mean, they are significantly declining. I live in North Andover. We are closing an elementary school, and we lost over 600 students in the last decade. That's an entire school worth of children. So, I mean, it is because it is harder to get into these communities in Essex County, and then particularly in this kind of greater Newburyport, a little bit more rural, and because families are just they're not having children. So I don't think that's the case. Yeah, I mean, it is a case across the state, and we are losing. I mean, I think Bruce talked about we are losing families to New Hampshire. We're losing families to other states, particularly as work becomes more mobile. So we are seeing that, but we are seeing just smaller family sizes too. So there's a whole lot that goes into why. But I would say charter schools are probably the exception to the rule, and private. But even private schools, are seeing declining enrollment. Some types of private schools. So it is a problem. I mean, really, I would venture to guess that not one of our towns or cities that hasn't had declining enrollment.
You've been very stable over the last 10 years.
Yeah. So they might be the exception to the rule, but all around.
But I guess it lends the fact that your standing is very important. So for us, it becomes relevant, right?
So that's definitely true, but I would also point out that Newburyport has done some interesting things to welcome some additional students into the system, and that has helped to level off so that it doesn't see that kind of a decline. But again, Triton, Pentucket, Masconomet, David, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm guessing Georgetown's seen a pretty significant decline as well. Yeah.
But can I ask another question? Is it a significant decline from when? Because I know about 5 years ago there was a huge boom, right, which they opened up numerous elementary schools in all those second districts.
So generally speaking, it's been over the last 10 years.
And a lot of those projects were already sort of in the works, right? The process of building a new school takes a long time.
So I have a year's experience of being both on the board of a charter school, but also I work in a private school in New Hampshire, right? So this weird, and I work with this weird background in the sense that like 15 years ago, exponentially, right, we invested in economic development in lower elementary schools for a lot of our communities, this big boom, right? So like, unless that boom 15 years ago is continue, there's going to be like there's going to be that shrinking of enrollment 7 years later without even any other external factors.
So one of the great tools that's available is on the Mass state website, mass.gov. And if you go to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, you can look at enrollment trends for the state and for every school district in the state.
Yeah, so what you see is like the South Shore has had a consistent boom without any sort of, with the last year waiting, the North Shore has had a pretty consistent cycle.
Bruce is going home with you.
But not to New Hampshire.
Like I said, I don't work in New Hampshire, so I get the benefit of both seeing that. I work in New Hampshire and I spend the last.
So when you get there tomorrow morning, can you send a few people back?
I don't work Fridays.
All right.
We have time for maybe just one more question. There is one more quick question that we not. Last chance.
Hi, I'm just curious. I live in West Newbury, so thank you for your representation. We have this gorgeous river that runs through our towns and city. What is being done with you folks to really engage on combined sewage overflows? Because, we talk about tourism and the state of business, adding housing, that adds more pressure into the river and overflow. What the hell is going on to fix this problem finally?
There is a lot of work being done. Yeah, I want a question. I'm going to send you home with a good answer. Okay? All right, first, the EPA has forced Lowell and Haverhill into disinfectant degrees. The major infrastructure is going into solving the CSO problem out of those municipal systems. Senator Tarr and I have filed a bill to set up a Merrimack River Collaborative. We're working with New Hampshire to come up with standards to test water quality and to make overall improvements in Merrimack. The Merrimack is a storied river. I don't know if you know this, but it's one of the first rivers that anyone wrote a book about. Thoreau doesn't go to Walden to write the book of Walden. He goes to Walden to write 1 Week on the Concord and Merrimack Rivers. And this becomes a genre of American literature that the world reads. So it is an important river for our district. It's not just that it's beautiful. It's not just that it's a tourist attraction. It's meaningful. It's a deeply meaningful space and an ecosystem. I also want to say that we're going to see more coastal and tidal flooding. And I'm very grateful that the new administration has put its exceptional resources and technical expertise into thinking about coastal zone management. So we are going to be talking more about resilience. What does the future look like when the Merrimack floods more often? That king tide flooding that we saw a couple of years, was it last year? That could be our future. So I feel like there are a lot of things happening. I mean, the sea is warming, it's rising, the storms are becoming more forceful, and the groundwater is rising. So water and flooding are going to be issues that we have to deal with as a community. So I hope that answered your question.
Not really.
Not really, but that's okay because we are coming to the end of this evening. And I want to thank Susan Warnick for being here tonight. It has been wonderful. What a joy. Let's a round of applause for Susan Warnick. Thank you for
Any last words, 2 words, which I will get to in a minute. They're all good questions. They're all great questions. And I think that everybody in this room is here tonight because we all share not only the passion of our community, and the Merrimack, by the way, was the home to the domestic shoe industry. Back in the, people look, yeah. I'm wearing them, actually. We share a passion for our communities. We share a passion for the people, with our neighbors, and we all understand that this is a very difficult time right now. And you can say what you want to. You can talk about all of the problems, and man, there are many. And it's not just this area. We all know that. But one thing I know that we also share is gratitude. To you, like I started in the beginning, it's going to be about you guys. You're shouldering the burden, and people voted for you because they trust you, and they're here tonight because they respect you. And I don't want to be you because it's going to be really hard, but you're going to do it, and we know you are because you are Bay Staters and because you're all passionate, and you are here tonight to show that. So thank you. And thank you. This great space, and you know what? It's going to be a great summer. It's going to be a great spring and summer. And I dropped a little bundle here myself, too. I'm going to ask you a question about